my first real job was at IBM. And as IBM Global Services, an office based out of Costa Mesa, we were working in a Cyprus location. And there were some really interesting, scary moments there. The first was my first day in. I came in just like full of energy, full of I can do anything. I'll work 20 hours a day. I don't care, because I just gotten out of the military. And I had to have an intervention by my coworkers the very first day. At the end, they said, hey, you need to slow down. There's like 6 of us. And we need to spread this work out, or some of us aren't going to have jobs. So come in, sit behind your computer, sip coffee, read your emails. Don't be in such a hurry to make the environment better and more efficient. And you're basically going to work us out of jobs. That was my first pain. Was I'm somebody who likes progress, who likes growing, who likes doing things better. That played a really big role, I think, overall in, what I had learned about what corporate was all about, and what helped me decide that corporate wasn't really going to be a good place for me long term. Every day there was something that would happen in corporate that I would think to myself, if I ran my own business one day, I'm never going to do this.
Hello, folks. Thank you for watching another episode of Revenue Playbook Chronicles. I am your host, Gene Lytle. Today, I have a special guest, Steve Wiideman. He is the CEO of Wiideman Consulting Group. He is a professor over at UC San Diego and Cal State Fullerton. He's also a co-author of a textbook named SEO, Search Strategies for the AI Era. Steve, welcome. How are you doing today?
Fantastic, Gene. Thank you so much for having me today.
Awesome. Where are you calling from?
We're in La Mirada, about 10 minutes north of Disneyland.
Oh, so you are on my neck of the woods. I love it. I absolutely love it. So I have some plans for you today. I've asked you to come up with your journey, to let us know the journey that you've taken. And we're looking for some pain. We're looking to see, hey, where have you had some potholes and how did you overcome them? So if you would like to get us started on that,
Sure.
I don't expect you to start when you were born, but somewhere
What was that,
thereabouts.
Goonies? It was Goonies, right? When Chunk and Goonies started talking about his whole story, he's like, well, I was in 3rd grade. And they just let him
Right.
keep going because they thought the kid was hilarious. I don't think you can use the word entrepreneur without it being semantic to pain. And,
Right.
having been in the world of freelance and in the world of working outside of the corporate world, it's always going to be painful. So for anybody who's been discouraged, I hope my story at least helps inspire you to try, to not just say I could never do it and I'm just going to stay here in my cubicle. You can do it. And yeah, there will be some pain, but it's worthwhile. Some of the amazing things I've been able to do in my career and my personal life, it's so worth it. It takes time though, so don't expect it to happen overnight. I would say my journey probably started right after high school in the military. I was one of four kids. I want to say we're kids because we're all like 18 when we joined, from the LA area, who went to Fort Benning, Georgia, to be infantry soldiers, or 11 X-ray as they called it. And
Wow.
and it was interesting because a lot of the folks here in Southern California are a little bit spoiled, right? That's one of the reasons they give us the nickname of Hollywood or Disney, is because we live in this amazing environment of great weather and theme parks and all sorts of really cool things that you can do that you couldn't otherwise in other parts of the world in the South, where there's actually something called weather. And I was one of the only guys in the 4 of us that made it through. One went AWOL and 2 had other reasons. And I was definitely the smallest in my battalion and maybe the youngest among these 7-foot tall farmer characters that were just these really tough guys. And so I had to learn how to adapt. And I think that's one of the biggest things that you can do in your career, in your life, is the ability to adapt. Everyone has this moment where they have to decide, hey, am I going to deal with this, or am I going to walk away and go do something else? And
Right.
for me, I think aside from the 3 guys, I decided, hey, I'm going to adapt to this. I'm going to figure out how to make it through and graduate. And I was the only one in my battalion from Southern California that actually made it through basic training. And in doing so, there were moments where I literally had to decide, hey, am I going to be able to make it through this? And what do I have to do to make it through this? Is this the way my life is going to be the rest of my life? Or is this just a current moment, a current story, a current dream, if you will, of what I have to get through to get to where I need to be? I think that moment in deciding, hey, if I can do this, I can do anything, completely changed my outlook on life and how I approached everything. And you don't have to be in the military to feel that. You just have to have that moment where you realize that this is a moment you've never been through before, and a struggle that you've never had to be confronted with. And you just have to decide to go for it. You just have to decide to push through. And the worst thing that happens is you fall down and you get back up, right? That's the worst thing. So for me, I think that the military taught me that you can really do anything you set your mind to, and that things aren't nearly as scary as they at first seem that they might be. So that was a big deal. I think that's what really helped me, in my journey to set a foundation of I can do anything. My first real job was at IBM, and as IBM Global Services, an office based out of Costa Mesa. We were working in a Cyprus location, and there were some really interesting, scary moments there. The first was my first day in. I came in just like full of energy, full of I can do anything. I'll work 20 hours a day. I don't care, because I just gotten out of the military. And I had to have an intervention by my coworkers the very first day. At the end, they said, "Hey, you need to slow down. There's like 6 of us, and we need to spread this work out, or some of us aren't going to have jobs. So come in, sit behind your computer, sip coffee, read your emails. Don't be in such a hurry to make the environment better and more efficient. And you're basically going to work us out of jobs." And that was my first pain. Was I'm somebody who likes progress, who likes growing, who likes doing things better. And I think that played a really big role, I think, overall in what I had learned about what corporate was all about, and what helped me decide that corporate wasn't really going to be a good place for me long term. Every day there was something that would happen in corporate that I would think to myself, if I ran my own business one day, I'm never going to do this. The politics, the being yelled at in front of your peers instead of being pulled aside, the boss taking credit for something that you spent a year working on, right? The stress and anxiety of it was exhausting. I got a postcard one day while I was at IBM, and it said, "Would you like a career in digital marketing?" And I was like, "Well, yeah. You could take an e-business management class and see what this particular field holds for you." Well, I had already been into web design while I was in the military. I was, playing around with the internet. It was still pretty new. We'd just gotten out of the era of Gopher servers, and we're playing with hyperlinked websites, and it was all kind of new. But I fell in love with it, and I was building little websites for fun and for my friends and peers. And right at the moment that I got this postcard, probably within the same month, one of my coworkers, who was a DJ, came to me and said, "Hey, can you do some stuff for my DJ business?" So I built him a website. I built a page for every city in Orange County: DJ Anaheim, DJ in Irvine, DJ, disc jockey. And then I put all sorts of things on those pages about what he does: weddings, reunions, etc. And a few weeks later, he comes back and he goes, "Turn it off." And I'm like, "Turn what off?" And he goes, "Turn off whatever you did. I'm one person. I can't have people." He said, "Hold on a second." And he goes, "Yeah, no, I'm booked. I'm sorry." And he goes, "I don't know what you did, but you got to get my phone to stop ringing because, I'm one person. Hold on a second. No, I'm sorry. I'm really busy right now." And so the poor guy, and I thought, geez, I could really make a career in this. If I build a website and I create content based on how I think people are searching, because we didn't really have a lot of keyword tools back then, this could really work. And so, of course, the pain was going to the boss and saying, "Hey, you've approved education for all of my peers who are in their 30s and 40s and married with kids. I'm in my mid 20s. I'm ambitious. I could do a lot of things for the company. Approve my education because I want to go and really excel at what's happening in this world of digital." And they didn't. And so I had to do it on my own. And I talked to my mom and my parents, and I'm like, "Hey, I really want to do this thing. I can afford, a good part of it, but can you help me out?" And so the parents kicked in, and it took a little bit of humbling to go back to the parents and say, "Hey, can I get some help in college?" But I made it through, and I graduated. And in fact, I was the Career College Association's Great Award winner, one of 5 students selected to win a national award and flown to DC, to celebrate. And the reason I was able to do that, and some of the challenges I had to deal with, is I'm working full time at IBM and I'm going to school full time in the evening. And so in order to keep myself engaged, I had to really put pressure on my peers and the teachers, or I would have just gotten bored and fallen asleep. So every day I always ask the teachers, "How does this help me with my career? How does this topic tie into what I want to do?" And then when my peers needed help, I just said, "You know what, I'm going to be the guy that steps in." And by me teaching, it helped me to be better at the topics I was learning. So there's kind of another learning lesson is hey, when you're at a point where you're challenged, sometimes breaking out of your focus zone of worrying about yourself and worrying about the others around you, you worry less about what you're doing, and what you're doing just sort of keeps going and works. So I put everything I was learning in college on my little personal website and took notes on my personal website in HTML. I literally coded HTML as I was learning it as a way to reinforce my skills in web. So all my peers who couldn't make a class or whatever could just go online and read my notes from my little personal website. So yeah, so I graduated, went back to my boss at IBM, and I said, hey, I'm now worth more, and I've got a job offer by an internet company, not doing what I want to do, but it's it's in internet services, and it could be a win for me. It pays 20,000 more than what I'm getting paid here. You can either promote me and give me the pay raise I deserve, and I'll stick it out and just freelance on this stuff I just learned, or I'm going to go start to use what I got in my career for my career. And she wasn't up for it, so I left and I started as an internet services coordinator, and I had to work with 20% of the Major League Baseball who were using this online ticketing system called Paciolan. I was the first one. It was in 2005. Around 2005, I was the first one, I think, in the industry to have a role of internet services coordinator, managing the two client partners who worked with Major League Baseball and Dover Racing and theaters and so forth. And I had to communicate between the web developers who were optimizing the ticketing websites and the client partners who were getting the requests and upselling the clients on different services. And so I had all these accounts I was working with between everything, and it took probably 3-4 weeks to get acclimated to everything. I was just exhausted. 12-hour days. I went home and I'm like, honey, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this. This is so hard, and there's so much to learn, and so many new pieces of software. And she's just like, just keep trying, just keep doing it. And so I'd take breaks, I get a breath of fresh air, and I started asking for help. I asked the web dev guys, can you show me this and how you're doing your ticketing system, and how I can get better at it for you to make your job easier. I went to my client partners and I said, hey, what can I do to make your job easier? And I just took all of those different learnings and decided this is the way I'm going to build my working environment. And it worked. I think I was one of the first people to have a professional job of search engine optimizer, and I finally got an opportunity to be a search engine optimizer. And my challenge was, I've got this 2,000 product website to work with. This was a monitor equipment company, monitor parts company, and their customer service department was like 3 people, and it was basically super quiet. They really weren't getting orders. They didn't really show up in Google and Yahoo and Excite and Alta Vista and all those sites that we used back in the day. And so I had to work with the developer over there, and a lot of the folks just weren't really, it's the phrase my parents would have said, hip. Not really hip to the internet, right? It was still kind of a newer thing. They never needed it before. They'd been in business years doing TV monitors and computer monitors and stuff, and never really needed the internet as a means to drive business. But now they did, and they brought me in to do it. And so I had to learn how to communicate with a web developer who had his own projects going on, and get him excited about a cool idea that I give him credit for, to take all these pages and add all these different SEO focal points to it, such as optimized titles and descriptions that you might see in the search results, and heading tags that resonate with the user and with search engines. And so we did this rollout. Within 3 months, they were number 1 for every single product, and the customer service department was 30 people filling up this room, running out of space. But I had essentially worked myself out of a job, because now they were already number 1 for everything. What was I going to do? So I was without a job for a few months, and then I got a call from an entertainment company called Disney. And Disney said, hey, we need somebody to help run our paid search. And I'm like, well, I know Google Ads and Overture and all these tools we used back in the day for advertising and search engines. So I had an opportunity to work for Disney. But my challenge was, I was really into organic search engine optimization. The pay-per-click stuff was really kind of mathematical and not very difficult to do, and not very challenging or rewarding, aside from a few moments where we were able to get through some red tape in terms of a brand policy. Like, for example, Disneyland doesn't sell tickets, right? Like, what are you talking about? I go to Disneyland all the time. No, they sell passports. So for me, I had to convince the business that we should be using keywords and trying to have ads that include the word Disneyland tickets. Even though we sell passports, let's figure out a way to wordsmith and use both. staying on brand, but also using the keyword that people are actually searching. And almost overnight, we saw 3 times the results, and it was a super exciting moment and applaud worthy, where everyone the next day was like, we had our best day of sales. Wiideman was able to get the use of the word tickets, and tickets is how we search, and our quality scores went through the roof, and we had a really great day. So lots of those little moments. So the biggest one was when I said to my boss, Terry, I said, I really want to do the SEO part, because we've got this Adventures by Disney website, and it's built on Flash, which is this cartoonish looking thing that isn't very search engine friendly. There's no real words that can be extracted from it, because it's a movie. It's not text. It's not static text that you type in with a keyboard. So he says, well, you've got to kind of prove to me that you can do this. And again, this is one of life's challenge moments of geez, I've got to prove to the guy who runs all of the paid ads and search for all of the Disney parks and resorts that I can do something that I've been doing for a long time, but in a way that's really impressive to him. So I showed him a bunch of keywords I could rank for. He wasn't impressed. And he said, can you show me that you can rank for SEO expert? And then let's talk about how you can do SEO. And so I built a website called Top 10 SEO Tips, and I put a few pages up, one around SEO tips, one around SEO expert, which was the keyword he wanted to have me show that I could rank for. Another was SEO ebook, a little ebook I had. And so I created the page. I added all the SEO components to it. I went back to the university I graduated from. I got them to link to the page so that Google would see that as a credible reference. And I got to the first page of Google, and I went to my boss. I'm like, Terry, check it out. I'm number one I'm on page 1 of Google right now. And he comes back and he goes, well, you're not in the first position. I'm like, oh my God. So I go back, I start doing a little bit more creative work to get people to interact with my listing. I started to brag a little bit online about, hey, check out, I'm on the first page of Google. Where do I rank? And I do meetup groups and get, folks that were interested in search. And I'd ask them, hey, could you search for me and tell me where I rank? Oh, cool. Hey, did you click on my result, by the way? Oh, you did? Cool. Thanks. You just helped me move up in search results because you told Google that I was the most interesting result. And then I worked for a small agency that kind of part-time, getting them to promote me as someone that's related to the brand or affiliated with the brand. And their salespeople went out and said, search SEO expert is our guy. So I got the users to choose me more often in the search results, and it moved me up to that number 1 spot. So then I went back to the boss, and I'm like, check it out, I'm number 1. And we were able to take Adventures by Disney into an all Flash website, into a hybrid of Flash at the top and text at the bottom and actual landing pages. So it was a cool win, and I held that position for 12 years, which brought me to another life challenge. Another pain point that I had to deal with was that the industry thought I was a braggart, because I was always, check it out, I'm the number 1 SEO expert. And so I wouldn't get invited to speak. I had all sorts of really cool case studies and data and all sorts of neat things that were worthy of sharing. But the folks that would approve speakers would never approve me. And it was demoralizing, for somebody who thought he was the best in the industry, to not even be invited to some of the events. And one of my friends, Doc, came up to me one day and he goes, Steve, here's what's really going on. I've gotten to know you, and here's what I see happening is that they think that you're a braggart because of your number 1 position in Google and how you keep talking about it all the time. And that's why they don't want you speaking. They think you're just going to come up and brag. And I'm like, I did that to get the job I have with my boss. And so I ended up at that point taking the site down completely. I already had enough enterprise clients and stuff I was working with that it made sense. And so I dropped it, and now I get invited to speak, and I've got really great friendships with all the folks that run the events. But yeah, so that was a big deal. Sometimes proving yourself as an expert can be interpreted wrong and make you look really bad. So there's a balance that needs to happen between I don't know anything to I know everything. And if you can maintain that balance and have some humility, I think you'll get better. You'll build better relationships with the people who are going to help drive more business for you. But let me go back a bit, because we just jumped from Disney to a moment, 12 years later. When I did leave Disney, when my department moved to Celebration and I decided to stay back with my family, we made that decision to leave the whole corporate world behind after doing a sprint working for agencies. So if you are in digital marketing and you decide you want to work for an agency, here's some things you can expect if you are really good at what you do. If you are really good at what you do, then they're going to put you in a corner and give you all the things you want, except for the means and the resources of what you need to be as successful as you want to be. In many cases, they're going to hire people under you who have little experience, who are going to be painting their nails while you're over there with your 2 or 3 monitors cranking away. They're going to hire resources that aren't at the skill level that you want because they have a budget. And so, you've got to spend half your time doing the work and half your time training other people who have less experience on doing the work. So you're going to spend 8 hours a day just trying to do other people's work, and then you're going to spend your 9th to 12th hour doing your job while everyone's gone home. You'll also work some crazy hours and weekends, which can be really exhausting. I had, I think, 18 accounts at the time when I was working for the agency, and I was managing everything from tech, content, off page, everything that you would do in digital marketing. And I was doing it for 18 accounts with very limited resources who worked at a very different pace because I couldn't control who I hired. So I would never go back to agency. And, and for those of us that are go-getters and entrepreneurial spirited, you'll do the work because you can, but you will burn out, and it's not worth the burnout and the risk of losing the relationships in your life. I know I lost at least 2 friends because I was so busy I couldn't keep up with them. When I did leave the corporate world behind, this was a scary moment because we had freelance work, but just barely enough to maybe pay the rent, but not our car payments and utilities and food and other stuff. But I said, I can't live like this. Let's just give it our best and see what happens. And so I quit the agency world, and I spent my first month on my own going out to local businesses, to local car dealerships and just local offices that were within almost walking distance of our place. And I said, hi, I've worked for Disney and I've been in digital marketing since the late 90s. I'd love to take a look at what you're doing with your internet, with your digital marketing, internet marketing, and see if I can provide any value. You have 15 minutes? Let's pull up your website and see if we can find any quick wins. And so, for those that were willing to listen to me, the Disney thing did help, by the way. It made a difference. But I spent the whole first month, and I did close like $17,000 worth of new business, but I was so busy selling that I didn't have any time to do the work. So now I'm a month in, my clients are like, hey, so how's the work going? And I'm like, it's coming together. And so I spent month 2 doing both sales and doing 2 months worth of work for the clients that I had brought in on board. I made it through, but there were a lot of overnighters. There were a lot of 3 a.m., just grinding through, lots of headphones and listening to EDM music late at night. But somehow, some means I made it through. But it was painful. It was exhausting. It was a lot of these are small businesses where the budget comes out of their pocket, not out of a corporate budget. So it was constant back and forth of how's it going? And I'm like, it's only week 3. It's only week 4. So there was that challenge. The next challenge that came up, I think, was as a freelancer, as Steve Wiideman, SEO expert, 2010 to where all the different recommendations that I was putting together for clients for the content they needed to have to show up in Google, they would never do the work. I'd say, here's 20 pages you need to write, and I'll optimize them and they'll show up in search. And they would say, well, I'm a plumber, so I do plumbing. I can't just create a page that says I do plumbing and have you be number 1 in Google. I need accolades. I need stories. I need experience. What makes you better? Why are you different? What are some of the things your customers say about you that that really stand out? Do you have any pictures or images of some of the gigs that you've had or anything? And so the big challenge was having just hundreds of pages for all these clients, and I don't know anything about plumbing or auto dealerships or photography, right? I don't know the lay of the land. I just know what the keywords are that they need to appear for, thanks to the research. And I know that they know the business to be able to give me the content I need. So that was another big challenge I had to face. And that was the moment I decided consulting would have been a better deal for me. I'm going to make less, but I think I can pull it off. A friend of mine, David, called me and he said, hey, Steve, I've got a client in the shoe industry that I'm working with right now, and they really need some SEO advice and need like an SEO consultant to tell them, what they should be focusing on and what to do. And they already have people who can do the work. They just need someone to tell them what they need to do. I'm like, this sounds interesting. And so almost overnight, 2012, 2013 or so, I switched over from being, primarily agency freelancer to now starting to do consulting work. That client was Skechers, and I got to work with both their location pages, some 300 pages, as well as the e-commerce side, and helping optimize titles and descriptions of product and category pages to show up more often in Google. And we did a good job. It was me and a friend who said he'd love to be my wingman, like an apprentice, and jump aboard and work with me. So the two of us pulled it off. Skechers was happy. We saw, 1 year we saw nearly $2 million of incremental growth from organic search, and it worked. Got another referral from another agency that wanted us to white label under them. It was Public Storage. The first thing we did was this audit and strategy, and we said, here are the things that we think we can do that'll really make the difference. And we pulled it off. We worked with them. They did the things. They saw the results. And we're like, okay, I think we found our niche. I think we figured out where our strengths are in the world of search. And that's really doing deep research, creating audits and strategies, and helping our clients through the execution of it. But what I didn't know was anything about business. All I knew was how to get pages to rank in Google. So there were moments where we were healthy financially and things were going really good. And like, hey, let's go spend some money and do this big marketing thing. Let's invest $15,000 in this webinar thing with this national SEO news website. Let's spend some money and do a thing, or let's hire some more people because it looks like our income stream shows that we can do it. And then all of a sudden you get a couple clients that are running behind on payments, and you're like, crap, how are we going to pay all these people we just hired and these commitments we just made? And then it gets really interesting. And as a small business owner, you're like, well, I got to figure out ways to pay people. And you can't use your credit cards, right? Like Amex, it's against their policy to use credit card for making payroll payments. And you learn all these things as you go. I learned the hard way on a lot of them. And in many cases over the years, we learned how to use factoring. We work with a third-party company that will basically prepay you for outstanding invoices, and they'll do the follow-up for you to make sure you get paid, and they get a small percentage of the payments. We've learned how to take loans and use entrepreneur small business tools such as Fundbox, Fundbox. They were amazing for us in our earlier days and helping give us some of the financial leverage that we needed, as much as $50,000 to $80,000 if you needed it. And it was pretty cool to have that at your disposal for those moments that your clients are behind on payments. It's very rare, but it'll happen. Client goes out on vacation, forgets to get something approved with finance, and now you're waiting 2 or 3 weeks. And as a month-to-month small business, 2 or 3 weeks can make or break you. So those are some of the pains that I've had to get through just in general, and dealing with how you're treated at corporate, and and being in an environment where you're much weaker and not accustomed to the environment, like in the military, dealing with being somebody who always wants to please everyone and taking on more than you probably should, and letting your boss at an agency, take advantage of you, and then the pitfalls of, running a small business and the challenges when it comes to finance and procurement. There's been a lot of that. Even today, my biggest challenges, my biggest pains are, hey, we've got a great idea for a page that could drive a lot of traffic to the website. Here's an example. Here's a mock-up of it. Here's what it's going to take. And then your point of contact has to try to communicate it to the brand team to get it approved. The brand team says, no, this is kind of off brand. You take it back, you make some changes, and then they run through another cycle, try to get it approved, and you're perfect. Then they go to the legal team. The legal team's like, no, you've mentioned some trademarks in here. Even though you've said that your restaurant is next to, whatever stadium's a trademark and you can't use that. Like, okay, so we go past the legal team, we got all that stuff cleared up. Now we got to go to the dev team. The dev team's like, look, we're working on broke fixes. All this marketing stuff, we're gonna have to backlog it. So we'll probably get to it in 6 months. And you're like, oh my God, how am I going to prove my value if I can't get this work done? So you've got brand teams, point of contact, your legal teams, and now you've got dev teams that you have to battle with. And then you have to remember what worked, and what worked for me in my early days at the company where I was doing the monitor part company was making friends. So you reach out to the dev person, you're like, hey, you want to go golf and just hang out? I'd love to, to learn more about how the team works. And if you like to golf, we've got a tournament coming up that we're participating in, and love to invite you to hang out, or just, hey, we have a meetup group happening around SEO. I'd love to invite you. Or, hey, would the dev team be interested in doing a personal overview of what's happening in the world of Google, just because it's kind of nerdy and it's Google. And so just having those conversations to make friends with the folks that hold the keys can make it easier. And it's like, look, I know you have a backlog, but this would really make your department look amazing in terms of how much revenue this could bring in. And the moment they actually do the thing and they say, you know what, let me see what I can do, and they push it through, then when you see the results, you go back out to the leadership team and you say, hey, I just want to give a shout out to so-and-so who did this thing. We made some suggestions, but all the work got done by them. So kudos to them. They helped generate an extra estimated $3.5 million in online revenue for the next 2.5 years if we look at the forecast. So, congratulations to them and great job. They look really great. They get a pat on the back, and now you can go back to them and say, hey, I got another thing. Can you help me? And now they want to help you. Now they take your work out of the backlog and you can do it. So the relationship side of things and being able to get things pushed through makes such a difference. And that's where the braggart, the I know everything and I'm the best in the world attitude will prevent any of those kind of things from happening. So that's a challenge for sure. I think a lot of entrepreneurs too struggle with figuring out how do I get new customers? That's the biggest thing. How do I get in front of the right people so that I can drive customers? And that's been something, every brand, every agency struggles with. For me, what's worked really well, going back to that idea of relationships, is building relationships with the software platforms that my clients use and saying, hey, would you like to do a podcast or webinar together and talk about industry trend, talk about challenges, talk about strategies and case studies. And so I've built some really great relationships with a lot of these different platforms and brands that are out there that have put me in front of their audiences indirectly by simply inviting me in to speak with them or inviting me to their event. It might be some event they do just for their customers, and I'll come in and talk a little bit about digital marketing. And a lot of folks will hand me their cards and say, hey, I really want to talk to you later about doing this for our brand. So putting yourself out there, building relationships with similar verticals and with platforms can make all the difference. I also hired a company that helped get me onto, this is years ago, helped me get me onto marketing and business podcasts. And it really made a difference in introducing me to new audiences. And it put a lot of content out there on the web. If you search for my name, Steve Wiideman, Wiideman, and then put webinar or put podcast in that search, you're going to see, if you go to tools and see how many search results there are, thousands of them over the last decade or so. I've been on just hundreds of podcasts and webinars sharing industry insights and news and how I got to where I am and some of the tips and tricks and anecdotes that really resonate, with the folks in the appropriate industries. So that's kind of my history. That's a long one, right? I know we've been talking for a while, but that's, where I've been and some of the pain that I felt in, being out there as a solopreneur, eventually incorporating as Wiideman Consulting Group, and what I've learned.
I want to thank you for your service.
Okay.
I really do appreciate that. I did have one question. When you were with
Sure.
Disney and you were trying to, your boss challenged you to, I forget the word it was.
Rank for SEO expert?
Yes. How long did that take from when he asked you to do that to where you ranked on number one? How long did that take you?
Probably about 4 months. The page itself and showing up on page one was, I don't know, it wasn't very competitive back then, probably a month. But it took me a good 3 months to get from the 9th, 8th position into the number one spot.
Got it.
Yeah.
Is that something that someone could realistically think that could happen to them in today's market?
It depends on the competitiveness of the query. If you want to rank for the word credit card, for example, and you're going to go against Chase and you're going to go against, Wells Fargo, good luck, right? That's probably going to take you, if you're a bank, maybe 2 or 3 years to get there. Bob's watches, they rank on the first page now for all the Rolex models. And, in the beginning, it took about 1.5 years to get some of the models like Rolex Submariner and Yachtmaster to the first page. And to get the 4th position when we got it for Rolex watches, that broad word, that took almost 2 years. But for lesser competitive keywords, if you're a local business and you want to show up in the top of the search results for roofing services and that sort of thing, generally a new website can take as long as 13 months to really start to see traction from SEO. But if you're an existing business and you're trying to rank for a subset of keywords that you haven't optimized for in the past, generally, the first 3 months, Google's kind of looking at that page and testing it to see if it's relevant to queries. They'll look at in the 4th to 9th month how many links and mentions your brand has around those new keywords that you want to appear for. And then generally right around the 12th to 13th month, you'll see yourself on the first page if the content's better than the competition, if the links and the mentions are at a higher velocity, not necessarily quantity, than the competition, and if users are interacting with your listing more so than the competition because you have stronger, more compelling titles and descriptions in your listing, or maybe even have some rich results such as the star snippets, or a thumbnail next to your listing. Maybe you're creative and you've got a trademark symbol or something that really makes your listing stand out. There's all sorts of things that you can test, to really try to influence those user signals. But first couple months, content. Next round,
Right.
off page. Next round, how they're interacting with your listing in the search results.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of things out of high school. And
Yeah.
would you say Disney is the most accomplished, or would it be some of these other brands that you've done as well?
I think Disney was the most fun in terms of the corporate culture, the people I got to work with, the meeting rooms, like, hey, meet me in Dopey. The brand immersion, where we got to go to the park every so often. On Wednesdays, I got to work out of Anaheim, so I'd sneak over to the park during lunch. I think that was probably the most fun I had. Also the most scary, right? Like my second week on the job, I was having to give a report to the folks over at Adventures by Disney on how the performance was on their paid search. And that was, thankfully my boss was very supportive and helped guide me through and was my wingman. But yeah, it was so scary. Can you imagine working for the biggest entertainment company like that and being responsible for $1 million a month of paid advertising budget when you were
Right.
just basically
Gosh.
freelancing? So yeah, that was scary. But I'd say the biggest success I think I've had is the friendships I've made with the people I've been able to work with here. I think that's, I mean, the fun things that we've done, like I'll work from Catalina for a day, or we had a conference in Hawaii, so we took the whole team there for a week and got to hang out in Hawaii and spend time and do hikes and stuff together. The bonfires and beer tours of Orange County during the holidays. I don't know. I feel like that's been my favorite thing, is just and even the folks that don't work with us anymore are still a part of like the family. Or we'll all still get together and meet up and share stories. And I don't know. I feel like that's probably my favorite success, is just the friendships. And even more fun than that is when you're on social and you see people who are interacting with each other who used to work here and they're still like best of friends. That's the coolest thing. I helped create an environment where people develop lasting relationships that, you know, that's just amazing. I think that's my favorite thing about my career is, since we incorporated in 2015 and have worked with so many people on the team, it's just those relationships.
Awesome. So what would be next for Steve? I mean, you're accomplished author as well. Are you looking to maybe go into that realm as well? Or
You read my
'cause you're
mind.
you're a young
Yeah.
individual, so you got a lot ahead of you.
Young. I'm turning 50 in a week and a half. I'm not
You
that
don't
young.
look it.
My kid said I'm so old I fart dust. I don't know. The meanest thing ever. But so
I
so for me
that's
right now, I love writing. I just finished two things. I finished a post for Search Engine Journal that's going to go live, I think, in the next week. Really, really centered in on this whole idea of multi-location and franchise SEO. I just finished a new book that's for the shelves, not a textbook, but one for Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and it's focused on multi-location and franchise search. I'm excited to get that published and on the shelves. I'm enjoying the writing. I enjoy speaking at events, and sharing my experience and stories and storytelling and helping young SEOs, get more immersed in our community as a digital marketing community. And I really like that we've nailed down our niche, right? We launch our new website and this new book gets published. It's all multi-location SEO. So I feel like what's next for me is dialing that in and enabling the team to scale. We're really streamlining our process now for how we're managing locations and location intent pages. Like IHOP might have a takeout subpage for every location, or a delivery page, or a specials page, or Applebee's might have a happy hour subpage, right? Or wings. So those learnings helped us develop some pretty cool processes that I feel really confident that we can scale. So I'd like to see over the next 5 years, us have a nice pool of multi-location and franchise clients in a program that's centered around developing, optimizing, and reporting on the performance of multi-location search. So I think the next 5 years, more writing, more traveling while I'm writing, now that my kids are all grown up. And the teaching thing's fun too. I just taught the first AI-driven SEO and digital marketing course at UC San Diego that ended 2 weeks ago. That starts up again in the fall. I had a good time with that, and it's asynchronous, so I can do it online. So I'll probably keep that going. I don't know if Cal State Fullerton's going to continue their program or not. If they do, count me in. But if not, UC San Diego's, it's been a really great, experience. So I'll probably keep that going. So multi-location search, more books, especially more AI, and enhanced books. When Google does their big update this summer, I'll probably have a lot to write about with that, and hopefully more events and, meeting more folks in our industry.
Awesome. Awesome. So next, obviously we've seen some trends in the market kind of change. AI has gotten into the mix. Do you have any opinion on AI, whether it's good for you, bad for you, and anything like that?
Sure. I think from a ethics standpoint, there's a lot we need to think about. We read a lot about how these data centers are sucking up lakes, right, in terms of the energy uses and usage and so forth. So there's a lot of areas we need to improve on, but we're not going to be able to stop it, right? It's already there. It's alive. It's working. People love it. They're going to make it happen one way or the other. So we do need to work on how we manage the resources required to run it. And I think the platforms themselves are working on ways to make them more energy efficient. But I think it's an invaluable part of our current lives. We used to say, I don't know, let me Google it. Now I'm listening to my kids who are 20 and 21 saying, let me ask chat. Let me ask chat. Right? They're evolving from being searchers to being researchers, and wanting recommendations, not wanting a list of listings to have to figure out which one's going to be the best answer. So I feel like that it's already done, right? We're already in it. It's just waiting for Google to flip the switch to make it default. So in terms of functionality, oh my God, I've saved so much time. This morning, I put a list of all the site maps of the competitors for one of our clients into Perplexity Computer, as well as the clients as well. And I said, hey, I need you to monitor these URLs every week and send me a report of what's changed, what's new, what pages were modified, what was removed, so that I can understand what the competitors are doing. And it said, sure, what time would you like to schedule that for? And it just set it all up for me. I said, hey, you know what? I want to find out where the content gaps are on this personal injury attorney's website. Here's a list of 20 of their competitors and their site maps. And here's our site map and some of our data from Google Search Console. Analyze all of that and come back with an actual content roadmap showing the gaps. Do we have a page that the competitor has? And if we do, what's our URL? If we don't, put gap or opportunity. And so I'm able to, within like 11 minutes now, I can build an entire content gap strategy around where the opportunities are, at least phase one of it, to know what doesn't exist that exists on our competitors' websites really quickly. Now, if I augment that with some data from a third-party tool like SEMrush or data for SEO or Ahrefs, I can pull numbers into it to prioritize which pages to start with. But at least now I can do what used to take me 6 months. It took me 6 months to go through 185,000 keywords in Excel for Applebee's. It took me 90 days to go through 18,000 keywords for jacuzzi. You're thinking, how many different ways can you say hot tub? 18,000 ways, apparently. Jeez. And so when I was done, I had it all nice and organized. Okay, let's do a silo for number of people that fit in a pool. So hot tub for 2, hot tub for 4, hot tub for 6. Let's do it by price. Hot tubs under 5,000. Right? Based on how people were searching, we were able to create new content that mirrored how people searched and organize it in a way that search engines, can really retrieve that content easily. So I think AI is if you're not using AI to help you in your business, somebody else is, and you should be. And you hear the stats out there. You should be getting 3 to 10 times the productivity that you were getting before using AI. If you're not, then you're not using it right. And you should probably talk to somebody who is and see how you can improve what you're doing using some of these different AI tools, because they're amazing. The fact that I can throw data from 3 months ago versus 3 months a year ago into AI and say, hey, help me find where the challenges and opportunities are based on this data. And in a matter of moments, it can come back and say, here's what you need to focus on this month based on what traffic you lost and what traffic could be available to you. So it's pretty amazing what you can do now. Does it make the ecosystem more scarce in terms of businesses doing it themselves versus hiring an SEO person? I don't think so. I think when I ask a client to do the same thing and then I ask them to explain it to me, they get a headache and they're like, I don't want to do this. This is what you do. You just do the work. Right. So I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried, I think, for the peers that just aren't ready for it, that are just like, look, I've been doing everything the same way for 20 years. I don't want to have to relearn, how to do this all over again. So I'm seeing a lot of my peers retiring early and moving on to different, career paths, or just exhausted from it and saying I'm done. I've never had that. I look at a challenge, like I mentioned from my military background. I look at a challenge and I'm like this is how I adapt. This is what we need to do right now to adapt, is we need to learn AI. Yeah, I'm probably not going to learn how to vibe code and code things, but I'm probably going to hire somebody who does, because I'm
Right.
turning 50 and I'm not, in my early 20s, ambitious enough to go relearn, coding and programming. I'm probably going to hire somebody who's passionate and really enjoys that, and make that person part of my team.
Awesome. I have a feeling that I'm going to be needing your services to at least kind of help me understand that SEO just on my side for my business. So I hope you don't mind. I'm going to be picking your
Reach out
brain.
anytime. And that goes for anyone who's listening. If you're challenge ranking on something, find me on social. I'm just SEO Steve everywhere. Share with me what your challenge is, and me and the team here, we'll see if we can kind of help figure out what that issue is, and help you through it. And if we're helpful and you're interested in doing more with us, great. But we'd love to show you what we can do. So please, if you have a challenge, hit me up, and happy to take a look at it for you at no cost.
Perfect. Steve, this is one question that I'd like to end with. I always ask, but if our listeners just didn't get what we were talking about, or if they got distracted, and there was one message that you wanted to make sure that you push through, that if they leave with anything, they get this message, what would that be?
That would be to build relationships with other folks in your industry who have probably been through what you've been through, to help you where you're challenged. I think if you spend too much time trying to figure it out on your own, you might frustrate yourself or give up. And there's thousands of people who've been where you want to be, and you just have to ask them, how did you get through it? How do I do it? Reach out. I do a lot of mentorships for previous students and keep in contact with all of them. And some of them have been really successful in their careers. One built a career from, just sort of being an extension of us, and always asking me questions and texting me things. So I think that's the best thing, is build relationships, because those will be the catalyst to your success. When those relationships turn into, hey, I've got a referral for you. Hey, I've got an opportunity for you. Hey, I'd like to introduce you to somebody, right? Those things are priceless. So focus less on trying to be the best, and focus more on trying to build really strong relationships.
Collaboration is definitely a good thing, no doubt.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Steve, for being on our show. I'm so excited. I've learned a lot already, and you had a great journey. I'd like to tell my listeners, look Steve up. He's going to be a great resource for you. If you liked our information that we've given you, please like, share, comment, push the button that you see where you're at, and we will see you on the next one.
Thanks for having me, Gene.
You're welcome, sir.